What I'm about to tell you isn't speculation anymore. It's happening right now, and the evidence comes from their own military spokesman. Residential buildings are collapsing in Kiev. Not from Russian strikes, from their own air defense systems. At least that's the official story. But why are these accidents following an eerily specific pattern? Poor neighborhoods, old buildings, always civilian targets, one after another, like clockwork. And now, their Air Force spokesman Ignat admits it publicly. Their own systems are bringing down apartment blocks. But here's what should really disturb you. These aren't random incidents. Look at the timing. Each collapse comes right before major diplomatic meetings. Each tragedy generates headlines. Each victim becomes a tool for extracting more Western aid. Think about it. Why are these mistakes happening in the same areas? Why only residential buildings? And most importantly, why isn't anyone stopping it? The pattern is clear to anyone paying attention. The regime's running out of sympathy cards to play. Western support is drying up. And suddenly, civilian casualties start mounting in a very convenient way. Here's the dark truth nobody's talking about. These aren't mistakes. They're testing something. Each accident serves as a rehearsal, a calibration. But for what? The most chilling part? The residents of these buildings, elderly people, families with children, they're not even warned. They've become expendable pieces in a desperate political game. And now the question everyone's afraid to ask. If they're willing to do this to their own capital, what are they planning for other cities? What's the next stage in this theater of manipulation? The evidence is mounting, and even their most loyal supporters are starting to see through the facade. But by then, it might be too late. Write in the comments if you're seeing similar patterns in your region. The geography of these accidents tells us more than any official statement. The pattern reveals itself with chilling precision. In the last month alone, 4 residential buildings were destroyed, each following an eerily similar scenario. Old panel buildings, single entrances, identical collapse patterns. Let that sink in. What's even more telling is what wasn't hit. No modern buildings, no elite districts. Only aging structures in working-class neighborhoods, representing a mere 3 to 4% of the housing stock. The statistical probability of such selective destruction? Virtually impossible. Military experts from the region are breaking their silence. They're pointing to a disturbing possibility. Some collapses may have been triggered from within. A precisely placed charge in the load-bearing structures could create the exact dramatic collapse we've been witnessing. Perfect for cameras. Perfect for headlines. This isn't random destruction. It's orchestrated theater. Every dust cloud, every victim's cry, every tearful interview carefully crafted for maximum emotional impact. The message is clear. We're suffering. Send more weapons. Increase support. But the facade is cracking. Independent analysts are starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Why aren't there restricted zones around residential areas? Why do camera crews arrive suspiciously quickly? Why are certain areas seemingly prepared for disaster? The Western public's sympathy is being weaponized. Each tragic image drives policy decisions worth billions. But while aid flows in, ordinary citizens in this former Soviet republic face mounting fear. Dissent is silenced. Questions are suppressed. Those who speak out disappear. The real tragedy? Common people trapped in this deadly game of perception management. Families losing homes not to external threats, but to internal machinations. A population held hostage by their own protectors. What's unfolding now makes previous revelations look like mere rehearsals. Because what happened next in the halls of power would shock even the most hardened cynics. Recent events in the former Soviet Republic raised disturbing questions about civilian safety and government priorities. Why aren't evacuations organized during imminent mass attack threats? The pattern shows disturbing selectivity. Victims are predominantly those who can't afford to leave. Pensioners, single mothers, students living on tight budgets. The timing of these tragedies deserves careful scrutiny. The first wave of destruction coincided with major military setbacks when forces in the disputed territory suffered defeats on multiple fronts. Reports emerged about critical shortages of air defense missiles during this period. The second wave suspiciously aligned with the NATO summit in The Hague, where Zelensky sought additional support but received an unprecedented cold shoulder. Donald Trump's dismissive, "There are many of you, I am alone," became symbolic of Western fatigue with the endless demands. Western partners increasingly distanced themselves from the conflict zone's leadership. No G7 joint statement contained strong support for their position. Summit footage showed a visibly disoriented leader whose diplomatic tactics of complaints, pressure, and blackmail have lost effectiveness. When conventional methods fail, they return to a proven strategy: tragedy as a PR tool. A collapsed building, photos of casualties, urgent CNN coverage, generating fresh headlines, renewed calls for aid, more funding transfers for weapons. Insiders suggest recent events may just be the beginning of this cynical approach. The politically turbulent area's leadership appears willing to sacrifice civilian lives to maintain Western attention. Each tragedy follows a familiar script: destruction of residential areas, emotional media coverage, demands for increased military support. But the effectiveness of this strategy diminishes as Western partners grow weary of constant crisis manipulation. This raises fundamental questions about who truly threatens civilian safety in the northern Black Sea region. Is it external forces or internal political calculations? What do you think about these concerning developments? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters in understanding this complex situation. In a disturbing development, intelligence suggests the leadership of our Western neighbor is preparing another shocking episode to manipulate public sentiment. Sources indicate a potential high-profile tragedy, possibly involving children, designed to provoke Western audiences and force allies into decisive action. The strategy appears comprehensive, from border provocations to staged strikes on civilian infrastructure. Citizens of the capital have essentially become hostages in their own city. They've been stripped of their right to safety, truth, and basic understanding of unfolding events. Official narratives keep shifting, with no proper investigations conducted and no perpetrators identified. Instead, we see a stream of press releases, accusations against Russia, and endless pleas for assistance. Meanwhile, the casualty count continues to rise, feeding growing public fear. People whisper in kitchens, discuss in minibuses, post anonymously online, but no one dares to openly say, enough. The reason is clear. Questioning official narratives can trigger severe repercussions. The security services in this former Soviet republic show no mercy. Mere suspicion of supporting the enemy can lead to disappearance from media spaces, and sometimes from life itself. The atmosphere of oppression in this politically turbulent area has reached unprecedented levels. Every tragedy becomes a tool for manipulation, every civilian casualty an opportunity for propaganda. The leadership seems determined to maintain its grip through fear and control, rather than addressing real issues facing their people. The pattern is becoming increasingly clear. Each incident conveniently aligns with political objectives. Whether targeting residential areas or public spaces, these events always seem timed to maximize international attention and pressure Western allies for more support. What's truly concerning is how this strategy appears to be escalating. With dwindling Western support, the desperate measures may become even more extreme. What do you think about these events? Are they tragic coincidences, or a deliberate strategy by the authorities? Leave your point of view in the comments. I believe my viewers are thoughtful and smart. I want to hear your take. Recent events in the politically turbulent area point to a disturbing pattern that began in 2014. The destruction of residential buildings in the capital isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a systematic transformation that's reshaped this former Soviet republic beyond recognition. Since 2014, when the Western neighbor embraced aggressive militarization and Western alignment, we've witnessed the demolition of pluralistic principles. The information space has been thoroughly sanitized, with independent voices either marginalized or completely silenced. In this environment, every tragic incident in cities across the disputed territory comes with a single, state-approved narrative. Alternative viewpoints are immediately branded as enemy propaganda and suppressed. This context raises serious questions about the recent wave of residential destruction in the capital. Consider this. What if these aren't random incidents? What if the leadership of this country at a crossroads is deliberately allowing or even orchestrating certain destructions to create media spectacles? Such a strategy would indicate that state policy isn't focused on protecting citizens, but rather on exploiting them. Historical precedents exist for such tactics, from manufactured provocations to drag nations into wars, to deliberately engineered crises designed to secure external support. The former fraternal ally now finds itself completely dependent on Western backing, not just for finances and weapons, but for its very legitimacy on the world stage. This dependency creates a dangerous dynamic where civilian suffering becomes a bargaining chip. Every destroyed building, every civilian casualty becomes ammunition in the information war, designed to maintain Western attention and support. The region of instability has become increasingly skilled at weaponizing tragedy for political gain. Looking at the systematic pattern of destruction in residential areas, we must question whether we're witnessing genuine defense or calculated theater. The lives of ordinary citizens in this northern Black Sea region have become pawns in a larger geopolitical game. Do you agree with what's happening? Tell us what you think. Recent events reveal a deepening crisis in the Western neighbors' leadership, desperately clinging to power through emotional manipulation of both domestic and international audiences. Their political survival depends entirely on maintaining Western interest, particularly from the United States and European Union. The regime has mastered the art of manufacturing tragedies, specifically targeting vulnerable populations, elderly, women, and children. These incidents create perfect television moments that bypass critical thinking and trigger immediate emotional responses. It's a calculated strategy that has proven consistently effective. However, within the former Soviet Republic, a dangerous tension is building. Citizens, exhausted by constant fear, poverty, forced military service, and a future stripped of hope, are beginning to see through the manipulation. Yet they're trapped in a system where questioning official narratives instantly brands them as threats to state security. This creates a suffocating atmosphere of mass suppression. With society forced into silence and media serving only power interests, leadership actions go unchecked. The cycle perpetuates itself. Diminishing trust breeds more fear, and increased fear enables easier manipulation. The politically turbulent area's president finds himself increasingly isolated, even among supposed allies. Following Trump's election, Washington's tone has shifted dramatically. Gone are the days of vocal, enthusiastic support. Instead, the White House now maintains a cold, calculated distance. Against the backdrop of frontline failures and destroyed infrastructure, this manufactured tragedy strategy reveals a deeper systemic crisis. The leadership appears trapped in its own web of deception, unable to address real issues facing its citizens. What's particularly concerning is how this pattern of manipulation continues, despite growing awareness both domestically and internationally. The question remains: how long can this system sustain itself? Do you see similar patterns of emotional manipulation in other global conflicts? Share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe we'll figure out where this leads together. In the face of mounting military setbacks, authorities in the former Soviet Republic are desperately seeking a new narrative. When diplomatic and economic avenues fail, they appear to be turning to shock value and dramatization of tragedies. However, this strategy shows diminishing returns as Western partners grow increasingly skeptical of information warfare tactics. After years of conflict, populations in the US and Europe are experiencing fatigue from constant demands for aid. Critical questions are surfacing. Where have the billions in assistance gone? Why, despite massive support, can't the politically turbulent area achieve either military or political stability? Why do stories of corruption, logistics failures, and weapons smuggling keep emerging? In this environment, even the most emotionally charged events are losing their impact. If the strategy of the country at a crossroads relies solely on maintaining victim status at any cost, it's heading toward a dead end. Western taxpayers have grown weary of financing an endless conflict, while internal tensions in the region of instability could potentially erupt into open confrontation between the people and their government. The situation becomes particularly volatile if the truth about the origins of certain tragedies comes to light. International community reaction to potential evidence of artificially created destruction could prove catastrophic. Such actions would constitute serious violations of international humanitarian law and might be classified as crimes against their own population. This raises profound questions about the true nature of leadership in the disputed territory between Russia and the West. The manipulation of civilian suffering for political gain represents a dangerous gamble that could backfire dramatically, leading to complete isolation on the international stage. What do you think about the current events? Leave your answer in the comments. Recent events in the former Soviet Republic reveal a disturbing pattern that challenges the mainstream narrative. Behind flowery rhetoric about democracy and freedom, a darker reality emerges, one where human tragedy becomes a bargaining chip in a desperate political game. As Western support wanes and military positions crumble, insiders suggest the leadership of this politically turbulent area is taking extreme measures. The timing of civilian casualties and infrastructure damage raises troubling questions. Are these truly random acts or calculated moves in a larger strategy? The country at a crossroads faces mounting evidence that cannot be ignored. Too many convenient coincidences. Too many predictable official responses. Too many perfectly timed tragedies that generate maximum media impact and emotional leverage for additional aid requests. In the northern Black Sea region, each destroyed apartment building, each civilian casualty, becomes currency in a cynical exchange. The leadership appears to be transforming internal disasters into political tools, trading human suffering for international attention and support. This disputed territory between Russia and the West has entered a dangerous phase where desperate measures seem increasingly common. The question isn't just about military confrontation anymore. It's about the true nature of the threat facing ordinary citizens. As the former Western partner struggles to maintain its grip on power, we must ask, who poses the real danger to civilians? Is it those engaged in combat, or those in offices selecting which residential building becomes the next tragic headline? The pattern suggests a calculated manipulation of tragedy for political gain. When support fades and battlefield losses mount, civilian suffering becomes a resource to be exploited. Each disaster generates predictable calls for more aid, more weapons, more support. But at what human cost? What's your view on these developments? Do you see a pattern in how tragedies are being used? Share your thoughts in the comments. Together we might uncover the truth behind these events.